First tonight, the human face of insecurity in Nigeria. The stories behind the headlines. Ordinary people whose lives have been shattered by banditry, armed robbery, kidnappings and insurgency. In any conflict, whether it is armies ranged against one another or criminal gangs rampaging across a country, it's usually innocent people who suffer the most, their plight often forgotten, buried beneath statistics and faceless analysis. And so it is with our first guest, Carol Okoko, Senior Special Assistant to the Abia State Governor, whose life changed dramatically in June this year as she was on her way to attend a funeral in the southeast. She was attacked by gunmen who besieged her car at a speed bump. They opened fire without warning, hitting her several times and leaving her seriously, almost mortally wounded. Well, to help us understand the ordeal she went through at the hands of unknown gunmen, I'm joined now in the studio by the victim of a recent shooting and kidnap attempt, Carol Okoko. I should warn you that some viewers may find the content of her narrative of the incident disturbing. Carol, thank you very much indeed. I mean, we really appreciate your coming in to do this because I know you're still going through some medical challenges. But briefly, tell us about your ordeal at the hands of gunmen who attacked you, starting with when the incident actually took place.
It was on the 8th of June, 2022. I was on my way to Anambra State from Enugu State. So we got to a place called Obinagu, just before the Federal Road Safety Training Academy. There's a speed breaker bump. So my driver, myself and my PA were in the car, an SUV, no jewelry, no glam, but I didn't plan for what happened. A man came out from the bush. A lot of grass was there. He came out. We thought, my driver thought he had a problem. He needed help. And I said, don't stop the car, move the car. But the speed breaker made him halt. And what we didn't plan was the gun. We saw several other men. But what I saw in the seconds was about 4 to 5 men. But the person in front of us started shooting. I believe it's to make the car come to a halt. So he was shooting at us. And initially, I thought it was maybe somebody who would hear the language I'm speaking. I speak in Igbo, an English language, so I spoke in Igbo. First of all, I told the people in the car to bend down. And I found out when I bent down, I had a liquid by my right ear, by my jaw. And on touching it, I could perceive it was blood. Then by my chest, I had a heat sensation. And there was a bump, a swelling by my right here. And I knew I had been shot. I didn't know I would come out alive. I didn't know what they wanted. So they opened the car behind where I was sitting and threw all the contents, my bags. So I thought they wanted to rob. I was happy because there was money, there were phones they can take. They didn't want either. I had a lot of money. They didn't take it. They tried grabbing me. So I spoke in Igbo, I'm going to a funeral. And I heard the language they spoke, which wasn't Igbo. It was Hausa. So I can hear Hausa and speak basic Hausa. So I started begging in Hausa, the Allah. I begged, but God saved me because I was hurting, I was bleeding. My whole boo-boo, my kaftan, and was all bleeding. So I was afraid bleeding from the upper jaw. So I removed my turban and pressed on it. They were trying to grab me. I kept begging. I kept begging. They took my driver into the forest. I begged and begged. I was praying constantly to God and mentioning my children's name. I continued mentioning my children's name. I never knew I'll make it out.
So how did you escape from the attackers?
They left. I was afraid that they'll come back. So I tried opening the door because he slammed the door. It couldn't open because the car, when you close it, it locks automatically. So I had to release the lock and I made a run for it. The place where we were slopes down. There was bushes. I don't know what was in there. Be it water, be it an erosion, it is worth running and jumping. So I made a long jump. I used to be an athletic person when I was much younger. So I am a PA who faked she was dead because she was lucky she wasn't hit by the bullet. I made her run into the bush. And they did come back. But I wasn't there. I was in the bush.
So
silent.
they came back to the car to look for you, basically.
To look for me.
Presumably they thought that you had become impaired because you'd been shot and you wouldn't be able to escape.
Yes, escape. So I didn't know they would come back, but I suspected that. I was lucky. I just saw their feet from far. I remained. I couldn't even move. So I was there for a long time. Cars were moving by. They were speaking, saying something happened here. I couldn't risk yelling for help because I didn't know who was involved, whether they wanted to get me back. They had a cane, a long cane, the size of a mopping stick, but black. They tried, but I was lucky. I was quite conversant with the language, and my cousin, she grew up in Zaria. She was in the car with you? She was in the car. She acts as a PA to me.
Right. What happened to her?
Oh, she is so lucky. God's blessing. God was there. He saved us. It's impossible to be shot on the head, on the chest and on the shoulder, and you're still talking. People have died for less, just falling down.
So after that, then, you escaped from the car and you ran into a ditch and they eventually left.
They eventually left.
Right.
So I saw a police Helix car and I yelled for help. And they did reverse and they stopped. So I had to climb out of where we are because it slopes down. And climbing out means climbing into a gutter and out. So when I came out, I didn't see my cousin. I didn't know where she was. And
what about your driver?
Yes, my driver was taken. So they had the gun pointed at me because maybe it might be a hoax or something.
You mean the police?
The police.
Right.
So I instantly laid on the floor and I yelled. I told them I had been shot. But while talking, it was painful. So I had to eventually get up. So they still had the gun pointed, but I had to talk fast. And they asked if I recognized the people. And I said no, because it's risky to say yes. And when the car was passing, I didn't want to risk being shot at mistakenly or anything. I made a run again on the left, and I stayed there till I heard a gunshot, and my cousin yelled, "That's my auntie." And the other policemen were picking the shells. I peeped and I saw them picking the shells on the floor, and I later came out and explained my ordeal to them. So they wanted us to go to the police station. I said, no, I've been shot. And I might have internal bleeding. I need to get to a hospital. So they said I was lucky that it is a gunpowder, that if I was shot, it's impossible for me to still be standing. I said, look at the shells on the floor. It's copper color. And I saw the gun is AK-47 because my father started the Nigerian Army. He's NDA-1 and we have guns at home. So
I'm sorry, darling. Just take your time. I can imagine what this is doing to you, but you wanted to talk because you wanted people to understand how horrific this ordeal is. So I congratulate you for your courage in coming over here to talk to us.
A good Samaritan, he stopped by and he stopped thinking we're being harassed. He asked what the problem is, and I told him we're shot. I was shot. And he said, no, they have to be taken to the hospital. We'll go to the UNTH in Ozala. So he didn't even close the door of his Jeep. So he told the police to come with us so we could be treated, because with gunshots, it could be anybody. It can be a woman and still be a culprit. So they needed the police to write and sign to help us out. And they came with us. And on going back, we met the same, because I passed 2 military checkpoints. And they were surprised seeing me, and I was shot. So we went, and on getting to the teaching hospital, there was quite a good response. I was very impressed. They took care of us. They started taking care of our wounds, because before we got into the car, my driver came out from the forest and he was bleeding. I was scared. I said, oh my goodness, this poor man is shot. We're all killed. I pray nothing happens. And we're both treated. My PA was okay. And we're both treated. And the next morning, being that the doctors they were waiting for had not come, we had to go to Memphis hospital because of where I was shot. You cannot just treat without checking properly. Memphis is known for neuro and cardio, and they are top notch if you want to be alive. God saves people, but the doctors are blessed. So they ran tests, just like UNTH did their scan. They saw where the bullet was, and they said I was lucky it was before the shoulder blade, and by my upper jaw, it didn't get to my skull, just 1 inch.
My goodness.
It's impossible for any medical person to get it done.
I can see how that would have been, just thinking about it, I mean, would have been so emotionally challenging.
I didn't know make it, so I was opportune to call my family in Texas, so I called out. I didn't want my daughter to know. I didn't want my mother, who's aged, to know, so she doesn't collapse. So I was lucky I got my sister. I called a friend of mine, and I called my family to let them know. And they didn't understand, because when you say you have an emergency, they expect to hear you had corona. Because even with the vaccine you've got, maybe you had corona. So when I said I was in hospital, they thought it was corona. They didn't plan to hear that you were shot. So when I said I was shot, they said, like, as in gun, as in shot. I said yes. So I couldn't talk because I had a pain. So I had to give the Samaritan who left. He had a new baby. He had his wife. He called the wife. He said, I can't come home. He stayed with me for throughout my hospital.
Well, that's very courageous and very helpful of him. But you had to go through several operations, and you still have a bullet inside you.
Yes, I still have a bullet inside me. I went through, because of, they were worried about the bullet moving, and I had excessive pain on my upper jaw, and they were worried about a mistake will mean damaging the facial nerve, because they had a lot of nerves there. They had to take care of that. And the shoulder, to remove it, they had to take decisions, because to avoid infection, meaning you will lose using your arm, and infection might spread. But they had to work as a team, and they did it well.
And they're responsible for you being able to have recovered to the level that you have.
They were very responsible, and they did advise to wait for a month or 2 so the remaining bullet can surface, because it's deep in the pocket of my chest, to avoid, because it's not an easy operation. What got me emotional was the outpour of friends, childhood friends. People formed prayer groups. Friends I've not seen for a long time. I had friends who called from Lagos, Port Harcourt, London, but people I had not seen. A lot were saying, what's your bank account number? I said no.
Yeah.
I thank God I'm alive. No, I said no.
Well, we appreciate people like that, but we've got about a minute or so left. Having been through this horrific ordeal, what do you say to the government and to Nigerians about what you went through?
It's good to have extra security. We have a challenge, I know each state is quite vast, and the chief security of the state should know is not just the city of the state. The boundaries and the security personnel around there need to know people in the bushes. They need to know that when people are traveling, because I'm not a night crawler, we leave in the evening, but if you're leaving anywhere by even 3 p.m., you might be, because of bad roads and bumps, you're going to meet them. These people have been operating. For it to get to me, I knew there's a problem. We need more hands on deck. And at the same time, there's no manpower from what I see, because you have a few people and a large highway. So even if you're going, the response is few. So maybe we will need to have people on patrol more. Not just the police, but the military. But military is to save to the borders of the country, so they are overstretched. But if there's a way they could have extra forces, because we did reach out to the state government and they brought back what they call the state guards, the forest guards, to trim the bushes. So I think they need to trim the bushes so people don't hide there. But we have like over 10 to 20 people. Even if you're moving in a convoy, you might not make it alive. They will hit your convoy. You can't make it alive, so you can't rely on a convoy.
Well, Carol, I have to say that I'm very appreciative of you, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching, will be very appreciative of the fact that you took the time, in spite of what you went through, to share this experience with us. And I hope the people who are in charge were listening to you. Carol, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Carol Okoko was the victim of an attack by unknown gunmen, and she was talking to me here in the studio.